Tanse, good afternoon. I'm Chris Nachkate. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. The mother of Samuel Bird, the 14-year-old who went missing in Edmonton on June 1st, is pleading with the public for help in locating her son. A command center has been set up on the banks of the North Saskatchewan River near downtown Edmonton. Dozens of volunteers are assisting with search efforts to locate Samuel on the land and in the river systems. And Edmonton police have also confirmed with APTN that a search warrant was carried out at a residence just last Thursday.
I was just wanting to ask Edmonton and surrounding areas if someone has like an acreage or a farm or even just driving down a back road, just to keep an eye out if you see anything on your farm or anything suspicious, or even if you smell something or your dog's been, wanting to go that way, just to give it a quick look around your property. You never know. And obviously, if anyone has any information, to please still come forward to the Edmonton Police.
And our Chris Stewart will have a story on the continued search for Samuel Bird in our evening newscast. The Thunder Bay Police Service is conducting a landfill search as part of a homicide investigation into the death of an Indigenous woman. 42-year-old Deborah Anishinaabe was reported missing in early December of 2024. Her death was confirmed later that month. Thunder Bay Police say they are working with the Ontario Provincial Police and the Anishinaabe-Aski Police Service in a search for partial human remains at the landfill. This effort follows a series of searches conducted earlier this year in a South Side Thunder Bay neighborhood. Thunder Bay Police say they are maintaining contact with the family in Sandy Lake, and the Anishinaabe-Aski Nation is asking for privacy for the family at this time. 24-year-old Levi Michael Lawson is charged with second-degree murder and indignity to a human body in connection with the case. A northern Manitoba First Nation is calling all moose hunters in the area to return their licenses back to the province as an act of reconciliation. The chief also says the recent wildfires have had an impact on the moose population and that many First Nations people rely on the moose for fall and winter meat. On Saturday, Pimachikamak Cree Nation Chief David Munias said they do not consent or give permission for moose hunting licenses to be used within the Cross Lake Resource and Cross Lake registered trapline areas. Chief Munias cites the 1977 Northern Flood Agreement, saying the agreement gives Pimachikamak members first priority to hunting because the dam for the Lake Winnipeg Regulation and Churchill River Diversion projects negatively impacts hunting in the region, and that the province has violated that agreement. Last week, Mississippiwastik Cree Nation filed a lawsuit against the province of Manitoba, alleging licensed moose hunting on its traditional territory infringes on their inherent rights. Pimachikamak is located about 520 kilometers north of Winnipeg. There's some election controversy at a First Nation in southeastern Saskatchewan. As CTV's Mick Favel tells us, the election act that the nation used is coming into question by some of its members.
A number of members from Zagame Anishinaabe are raising concerns over a recent election held on their nation.
We want to determine some kind of legitimacy to the elections that's taken place. We feel that their electoral term is over and that they have no legal recourse with which to act. And all of those things they are doing are in contradiction to fair and just governance.
On September 6th, a new chief and council were elected in accordance with the Zagame Anishinaabe Election Act. The act was voted on the nation in April and passed, allowing for electronic voting to be included in future elections. A week before the election took place, Indigenous Services Canada notified the nation not to use the new act as it had not yet been reviewed by ISC and a new chief and council would not be recognized. Zagame went ahead with the election anyways. When asked for comment, Chief Lynn Akus sent a statement saying, "The Zagame Anishinaabe Elections Act meets or exceeds the requirements of the First Nations Elections Act, and the election was conducted fairly and transparently." In a statement to CTV News, ISC said it recognizes the named chief and councillors as being elected, though a ministerial order to formally remove the nation from the First Nations Act has not been obtained, and the department is working with the nation to support this transition. adding they are aware of the concerns raised about the election but do not have the authority to investigate or decide on First Nation election matters.
We support sovereignty, but sovereignty has to be done in a fair, just, and legal way. This is not sovereignty. This is not done fair or legally. This process was wrong, and it should not be happening to anybody else across Canada.
ISC says the election can still be appealed within 30 days. In the meantime, Zagame says the newly elected chief and council acknowledge members' concerns and welcome respectful engagement. Mick Fable, CTV News, Regina.
2 lawsuits have been settled against the Yukon government and social services nonprofit Connective over deaths at the Whitehorse Emergency Shelter. Here's APTN Sarah Connors with the details.
Miranda Tija Charlie's family describes her as a caring person and a sports enthusiast. But the 34-year-old Vuntutquitchin citizen's life was cut short when she died from a drug overdose at the Whitehorse Emergency Shelter in January 2022. The shelter was operated by the Yukon government at the time of her death.
My life has changed overnight, and I've never been the same ever since.
Tija Charlie's mother filed a lawsuit against the government late last year. At the same time, the estate of Darla Skookum, a Little Samakaramak citizen who died at the shelter in April 2023, also filed a lawsuit against the government, as well as the shelter's current operator, nonprofit organization Connective. Both suits allege the shelter operators were negligent in the women's deaths and failed to uphold a duty of care to keep shelter guests safe. The government and Connective have now settled both lawsuits out of court, the terms of which are confidential.
I can't say that with the tool that we had, which is the court system, both of my clients feel that we used the tool to the greatest extent that we could. And there was really no reason to proceed further.
Tija says while nothing will bring her daughter back, she believes sharing her story can help raise awareness.
I wouldn't want anyone to go through the grief that I'm living through every day.
The government and Connective say they're pleased a resolution has been reached, but can't comment on specifics. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
In the Northwest Territories, a self-government agreement has been signed, ending a 20 years of negotiations. Last Thursday, on September 18th, Sherry Hodgson, the president of the Telekot-Linegotenek government, Rebecca Alty, Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations, and R.J. Simpson, the Premier of the Northwest Territories, signed the agreement. It comes after community members voted to ratify the deal in March of this year. The agreement still has to be voted and passed as territorial and federal legislation to make it legally binding. 4 people elected to the Metis Nation Saskatchewan took their oaths of office on Friday at a special swearing-in ceremony. 2 of them were waiting for a recount, while the other 2 were previously denied entry to the original swearing-in ceremony last June. Vice President Michelle Leclerc and Treasurer Jeremy Denemy were sworn in after an official recount of the May 14th election was completed and showed they won their positions. Regional Representatives Wendy Gervais and Sherry McLennan were also sworn in. They were also elected on May 24th, but were barred from entering the original swearing-in ceremony after a dispute with an M&S employee. After all 4 took their oaths, M&S announced that regular operations will resume Monday, September 22nd. We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation with us. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. And to read and watch our stories, you can go to aptnnews.ca. And you can find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Before we head to the break, our Yellowknife video journalist Bruce Dela Cruz tells us what he's working on for APTN's National Day for Truth and Reconciliation.
Hi there. The North Slave Métis Alliance in Yellowknife is holding their first gathering for the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Stay tuned as I sit down with Alliance members for their perspective on truth and reconciliation. That story only on APTN National News.
Welcome back. Governor General Mary Simon recently granted a number of Order of Canada designations, and 7 Indigenous people are amongst the latest recipients. APTN's Fraser Needham caught up with 2 of them during the awards ceremony at Rideau Hall in Ottawa. Here's that story.
Governor General Mary Simon handed out 60 Order of Canada awards on Thursday. Josephine Bacon was appointed an Officer of the Order of Canada for her efforts in revitalizing Innu language through poetry, teaching, and translation.
It's the most important to speak my language, my own language, to be a really new woman. If I don't speak my language, I'll be me, but without speaking my identity.
Bacon says preserving the language has become more challenging over the years as young people move away from land-based roles like hunting and fishing to Western jobs such as doctors and lawyers. But she says she has no doubt the language will survive.
Oui, bien sûr, oui. It has to be. That's why I'm teaching. That's why I speak to young people, so it's sacred. It's like going to the church. It's very important.
Leona Irons Cummings has also been appointed as a member of the Order of Canada for her contributions as Executive Director of the National Aboriginal Land Managers Association on the Curve Lake First Nations near Peterborough, Ontario.
This kind of hard work, we have to build, capacity and knowledge to our people, especially in land management. And so it's a tough job because we have to abide by 3 types of laws. And my understanding is that we have to contend with the natural law, our traditional laws, and then the legal laws.
Irons Cummings says Indigenous land management can be a complex process, and this is why her organization takes a ground-up approach to training.
We've developed a certification program for land managers to be certified in land management, and we also offer specialized training, which is takes things specific to land management, and urban reserve, additions to reserve is one of our key toolkits. So if a nation comes to us, we'd certainly, help them in understanding the process of those kinds of things.
Kent Monkman.
Some of the other Indigenous Order of Canada recipients this week include artist Kent Monkman, Thomas Cunningham Wilson, and educator Richard Hill. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
The 4th annual Youth Empowerment Gathering started this year's Truth and Reconciliation Week at the Scotiabank Centre in downtown Halifax, with students from across the Atlantic region all in attendance. APTN video journalist Angel Moore reports.
Over 3,000 students from grades 7 to 12 attended The Gifts We Carry, an event marking the beginning of Truth and Reconciliation Week by the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation. Students heard truths about residential schools and celebrated their culture through music and dance. Camden Maloney is 17 years old and is representing her community as the 2025 Miss Sabaganagati.
I feel like this is a very important topic to be talked about in schools because it brings awareness to the residential school survivors and the children that never made it home. And it hits deep to home because we had a residential school in Shubenacadie.
The Shubenacadie Indian Residential School was located in Shubenacadie, Nova Scotia, next to the Sabaganagati First Nation, the only residential school in the Maritimes operated by the Catholic Church. It closed in 1967. Doreen Bernard is a survivor and is a member of the Survivor Circle of the NCTR. She helped carry the memorial cloth of the names over 4,000 children who died in residential schools. Bernard says students are learning the history and impacts of the residential school system.
and they'll carry our stories as well. They'll carry our stories of the survivors into the future. These children, these youth here are the first ones. I feel like they're the first generation to really get this education and embrace it and know us and meet us and feel what we feel and know from their heart that we are there for them.
The event included on-stage dialogue with elders. Kayla Johnston is the Director of Education at the NCTR.
What has been a problem in the past is that students, folks overall, haven't been educated about the legacy and history of the residential school system. With this, they'll get to have that information and use that as they enter roles into the future, keeping in mind the principles as well as core values that we wish them to enshrine.
Maloney hopes students learned more about the history of residential schools and Mi'kmaq culture. She encourages them to speak to survivors.
That it's very important to go visit somebody from a Mi'kmaq community so they can really learn more about what happened to our elders.
Next year's event is set to be held in Alberta. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Jabotuk, also known as Halifax.
Time now to give you the results of last week's web poll questions. Our first question we asked, with Parliament sitting again, do you think federal politicians will be able to work together to lower the price of housing and food? 71% of you voted no, 18% voted unsure, and 11% voted yes. Our second question was, do you think communities should have the power to cut off their territory to non-Indigenous and sport hunters? A whopping 77% of you said yes, while only 15% voted no and 8% were unsure. And our last question was, should the federal government be forced to negotiate with the National Children's Chiefs Commission? 70% said yes, 18% were unsure, and 12% said no. Thank you to all who took the time to vote. You can go to our website at aptnnews.ca/poll to see this week's new set of questions. Haida singer-songwriter Carson Gray is up next to talk about her new music. That interview when we come back. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. St. John's 18, Charlottetown 18. La Grande River 9, Happy Valley Goose Bay sunny and 14. Saguenay 12, Quebec City 18 and sunny. Ottawa 19, Peterborough 19 and rain. Thunder Bay 17, Wawa 17. The Paw 18 and sunny, God's Lake partly cloudy and 18. Gimli 17, Barons River 18 and smoky. Swift Current sunny and 12, North Battleford 12 and rain. Buffalo Narrows sunny and 13, Uranium City 14. Sunny and Peace River at 16, Fort McMurray 18. Lethbridge 26, Red Deer 26. Tofino 18, Vancouver 23 and sunny. 14 in Prince George, Dees Lake 8. Beaver Creek 9, Whitehorse 8. Norman Wells 7, Watee showers and 9. Tuktoyaktuk 2, Palatuk 2 as well. Baker Lake 11 and showers there, Chesterfield sunny and 13. And Arctic Bay +3, Iqaluit +7. Haida singer-songwriter Carson Gray has had a busy summer releasing a new EP and a pair of singles. In 2017, Carson was named Best New Artist at SiriusXM's Indigenous Music Awards. And this month, she has teamed up with Spotify to curate the music streaming giant's Indigenous playlist. Our Dennis Ward recently spoke to her. Here's that interview.
Carson, thanks so much for being with us here. As we mentioned in the intro, a busy summer for you with the release of an EP and a new single, 1 Million Feet High. Your previous album last winter was a gospel album, but sung in your language. How would you describe the music you've released this year?
This year, I would say It's still kind of like in the more singer-songwriter folk genre. It is not outwardly Christian, but I would say it's rooted still within my faith. It's definitely the inspiration behind a lot of the songs.
You're curating Spotify's Indigenous playlist for the month of September, something you've done in the past. Who are some of the artists you're highlighting this time around and why?
I am highlighting DJ Shub and Tia Wood, my husband Joey Styles, a few other artists who are good friends of mine still on the playlist this time around. I'm just trying to think of who else is new. But DJ Shub, I'm happy to have him on this playlist this time. I heard that he was also on the show not too long ago.
He was, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, he's a good friend of my husband and I's, and when I first started putting out music in 2017, he was already so big, so successful in the Indigenous music industry and beyond, and he's just such a cool, humble guy, you know. He was just so open to collaborating with me, and I really appreciated that. The song was called Wanna See You. So.
Yeah, good stuff. What's it like getting the big billboard treatment in downtown Toronto and getting the chance to highlight Indigenous artists and, of course, your own music?
Yes, it's a dream come true. Something I always thought would be amazing to just see myself up there so big. I'm just so grateful for the highlight, and it's fun curating the playlist because you know, I have friends and artists that I feel like maybe new or their music isn't discovered yet in the Indigenous music industry. And I'm so grateful that I get to play a part in having their music just be heard to a bigger audience. And they get to be put on a Spotify playlist for the first time. And it's just exciting for me to see how happy and excited they are as well.
Yeah, I bet. As you mentioned, you know, there's some familiar names on your playlist, some I've never heard of, which is kind of the point, I guess, as well. How would you describe the Indigenous music scene right now?
I would say there's a great mix of all genres. Like, we have amazing rap artists, pop artists, punk artists, singer-songwriter, folk, and I think Indigenous artists are doing amazing right now. It's like a Indigenous renaissance to say. And yeah, I'm just so grateful to Spotify for the opportunity to have me back.
Well, Carson, congrats on the new music and the taking over of the Indigenous playlist. Thanks for taking some time for us here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And that's your Monday daytime newscast. We're back again in a few hours for your evening newscast. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, hai hai mi gwech masi cho. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again. Ekse.